We have this fixation that more is better, and more is not better. You want the minimal effective dose, maybe a little bit more because we don't know where minimal is. People say, how many sets in the gym? Is it, now it's like all about the volume hypertrophy, or like I've always fairly low recovery quotient. So for me, I like to do a couple warm-ups, a few hard sets, 2 or 3 hard sets, another exercise, 2 or 3 hard sets. That's it for that muscle group, move on. People always say, well, volume is where it's at. Okay, great. But when I do 16 to 20 sets per week per muscle group, I'll tell you, I'm depleted. It doesn't work for me. And I sort of, I'll just be honest, I kind of chuckle at the exercise scientists who say, well, this is the way it is in this study. Great, that's not how it works for me. And even though I'm a scientist and I trust data, I also trust my own experience. And no one's gonna tell me that it's placebo because it's what's worked for me. So I think that you have to find what your capabilities are. And I do think if you look at dog breeds, of which I'm obsessed by, if you go to a dog show, which everyone should go to a dog show once, but don't watch the show. Go behind the show where you see all the different dog breeds. What you'll see is what I saw the first time I did that. You have dogs where they're wagging their tail all the time. They're super excited, they're alert, you can see their eyes, right? They're just bright-eyed. You can see the Great Danes. They're super still. And then my favorite breed, and the reason I own them, is the Bulldog. The essence of economy of effort. They don't even lift their head off the ground. You walk over, you pet them, they'll like look up at you, they might wink. Very still animals. Very powerful, but very still animals. Now, I'm not wired like that, as you're probably getting the impression. I have a little bit more spontaneous movement, et cetera. So I need a lot of mental and physical stimulation in order to be happy, in order to feel fulfilled. So for me, there was a lot of work, and I still do a lot of work in order to learn how to downshift, take it down, become a good sleeper, become a good resetter, reset myself during the middle of the day with things like non-sleep deep rest, which for me has been one of the most powerful tools, or long exhale breathing to just bring myself down. Other people, they tend to have a little bit less energy than life demands of them. So they need to do a bit more cold shower, a little bit more caffeine, but then those people probably need a little bit more rest. They're like the bulldogs of life. Mm-hmm. I think even though we're all the same species, just like dogs, there's a lot of variation there. So you have to know thyself, as the oracle said, understanding a little bit about the catecholamines, understanding that certain things like exercise, deliberate cold exposure, stimulants like caffeine, and prescription drugs like Adderall, et cetera, powerfully cause the release of these catecholamines, dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, leading to big increases in energy and focus, but then always, always, always there's a cost, a trough that follows. Accept that, relax through it, then return to baseline and then go forward. Or avoid those things altogether. I'm not telling people what to do. Obviously, the prescription drug thing in particular can be, problematic for some people, even addictive. And certainly I'm not a fan of drugs of abuse like cocaine and amphetamine, absolutely categorically. Never done them, never will. And then other people who tend to veer toward, being hyperactivated, a lot of spontaneous movement. These people tend to be a little bit thinner, a little bit leaner, or just have a ton of natural energy. These people should really learn to incorporate more kind of what I would call calming and relaxing practices. Maybe a bit more sauna than cold plunge. Maybe don't crank the sauna to 220. I find myself doing that. I'm like, just relax, like enjoy the sauna. And so I think the key to a good life and a productive life is, again, to learn to master the transition states, understand some of the biology, and to really know yourself, not just your natural tendency, more bulldog-like versus, I don't know, pit bulls always have their tail going, a lot of spontaneous movement. There are other breeds as well. But also know that on any given day, you may be more or less rested. You might be more or less depleted from life experience, and kind of recognize where you're at and figure out what's optimal for that day. In fact, I forget who the guy is. He's on Instagram, and there are a lot of self-help accounts out there. But one of the best things that I've heard recently, and I try to incorporate it into my life, in fact, it's in my notebook, is when I wake up in the morning, I sort of take stock of where I am in terms of how rested I am. I certainly take stock of what I need to do that day. And then I ask, what's something that I can do to make my life that day and the life of others better? Sometimes that means rest a little bit more. Sometimes that means push a little bit more. Sometimes that means call a relative that you haven't spoken to. But thinking about how to make things better on the timescale of a day for oneself and for others, I think is what's manageable. And it's what's realistic. And it takes this whole concept of protocols and biohacking and prescription drugs and supplements and workouts, and it brings a real world perspective.